Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's not a webinar, it's a live stream. More people, more fun. Today's live stream organized by JetBrains. I'm Paul Everitt, Python developer advocate. I'm hosting today alongside three of my wonderful colleagues. I'll introduce them now and do a little bit of housekeeping. First, Dr. Jodie Burchell. Hey, Jodie.
Hi.
Been a little bit busy lately, haven't you?
Yeah. So I overloaded a bit on conferences at the end of last year. I think I did 6 in 2 months, which maybe it's not a lot for some people. It's a lot for me, especially when I have to travel to all of them. Discovered in this job, I'm not as extroverted as I expected, but here we are. And then had some time with my in-laws over Christmas, did a little trip to London, and just polishing off the last of the conference travel next week.
I know you want to go to Lithuania, you want to go back, but you're not going to get to go again.
It's all right.
There's plenty of places.
Go another time. Ines actually lives in Berlin, so I don't need to go to Lithuania to see her.
That's right. Okay, and now it's time to welcome some new faces. On my screen, it's there and there. First, we have Sarah Boyce, who joined JetBrains just before Christmas. Sarah's been working on Django for a long time, very quickly became active contributor, not just contributor, like contributor. I just made that up on the spot. I think that's a good jargon. As well as the maker of the best What's New video in Django ever. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's the only What's New in Django video ever, but
I'll
take it.
Work it, Sarah. Come on.
But yeah,
SEO is great on this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 1 of 1.
But that's Django Not Views. If anyone wants to check out my channel, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, no, I'm a code contributor. I'm a bit of a community contributor. So I write a weekly update in Django News, which is a newsletter curated by Jeff Triplett and Will.
Fabulous people.
Yeah, some of my favorite people. And yeah, earlier this week, there was Django Cologne's 50th meetup. So you might be able to tell I'm British, but I live in Germany for whatever reason. And it was great to go to that, though we had a few special guests, which I might talk about later. And yeah, Django is super fun. So happy to talk about that.
You were on Talk Python recently-ish, right?
Yeah, definitely. I was there too.
Right.
No, I was talking about Django Not Space, which is a contributor program I co-organize. So super cool.
All right. We are also joined by Mukul Mantosh, who I feel like you and I have been working together for 1,000 years. But now you're, as of very, very recently, officially over on the advocacy team with us. Been with JetBrains for about 10 months, worked with me on the JetBrains guide a lot. So some great content over there. Loves back-end development, a lot of experience, especially on things that I never want to touch, like Kubernetes. Welcome, Mukul.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for the great introduction, and hello, everyone. And I believe like many of you are joining from different parts of the world. I wish you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and perhaps good night. I believe I come into the part of good night right now. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's all three of those simultaneously for you right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we have Jay Miller in the audience. Hey, Jay. Wishing all of us good luck, including Sarah and Mukul. So we are going to go through a number of topics today. I'll get into housekeeping. Let's bring up some slides if we could. All right. Look at the first name down here. So we have to start with this. Helen Scott was going to be the head of this. It was her idea. Last week, we had an advocacy gathering in Munich. Helen's fell and blew up her wrist. You see that awful contraption attached to her surgically. And she is currently on a plane home right now Let's all give one for Helen. Yes. So this was Helen's idea. We're just executing it. Today, we're going to do a January update on things happening in various worlds that matter to us. We're going to talk a little bit about PyCharm, but really the focus is on things happening out in the world of Python. We're going to talk about new things in Python 3.12, etc., new things in Django, new things in data science and AI. I've been doing this slide for so long. And I had the same joke I give every time. I apologize. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. We're looking at chat right now. Thank you, Mateus, for saying that about Helen. She's eager to recover, very eager to recover. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. We're going to organize this into little segments. At the end of segments, Jodie's going to be kind of a moderator where we talk amongst ourselves and bring up things you have to say. Don't bring up just questions. Bring up things we should have said but didn't, because there's going to be some things in Django and Python that you're all very interested in. So we want to make this as conversational, as live as possible. As you can see, we have a lot of fun with this, especially on this slide, which is almost every time. I've done this like 50 times. It never fails. Someone's going to show up in the chat in 3 minutes and ask, is this thing recorded? Because I've got to go back to work or something. It's YouTube. It's recorded. It'll be available immediately afterwards. But we will also publish this on our blog with a link to it. And if you are on any of our channels, we will spam you endlessly until you watch the recording. All right, with that in mind, we will go ahead and kick off with some of the fun stuff. So let's switch to my slides if we could. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to talk about, on my slides, I'm going to talk about some PyCharm updates in 2023. So with that in mind, let's see, January update slides. All right. All right, they are on their way. We've had a number of things going on in PyCharm that we want to talk to you about. We'll get through those pretty quickly and get to the parts about Django next.
This is the part where you need to think of a really cool joke, Paul.
No pressure.
No pressure indeed.
Things give you an easy.
That's a sneak peek at something that will be coming a little bit later. The PyCharm 2023.3 release has a number of interesting things in it.
It does have a couple of Django things in it, I think.
Yeah,
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So those are the slides for Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're going to the next ones.
This is our fault for overcomplicating things.
Yeah, there's too many people here.
Too many moving
StreamYard
parts.
worked so hard to make it easy for me to bring up slides. And I'm like, no, we'll do it. Because I can only think of two things at once.
Yeah.
No.
No.
We have 4 slides.
There's a 1 in 5 chance, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
I told you I did the right thing by doing a live demo, but now it's going to blow up in my face and something's going to go terribly wrong.
No, Mukul did the right thing. Nothing can go wrong with this.
Yes, that's very true.
Oh my gosh. Someone in the chat, Mike Hillis, that I went to high school with, and he and I were on the same sports team for multiple years. My goodness, that's a blast from the past.
Wow.
All right, so let's see. There's an issue with the file for my slides. So I'll just go ahead and talk about them and see if it can come up. We did a couple of things in PyCharm that were really cool for Django, and it was really deliberative. We had a plan over the course of 2023. The plan included Sarah, even though we didn't know at the time that Sarah existed. But we had this long con going at PyCon to find our way to Sarah's door. Thank you for answering the door, Sarah.
Thank you.
But we also had some features that we put into PyCharm. And those features are the big one is the live preview. And I remember the first time we got a look at that in one of the Wednesday sessions, and it just blew my mind. So the idea is you can sit in a Django template, type, and over on the other side is a live re-rendering of that view. And it has some extra intelligence to know things like, well, this route needs these parameters, so tell me what dummy data do you want to put in for this. So that really is a good deal for that. Let me see if this is my phone. Let's see. So I'll paste the link into private chat. All right. So also related to Django is the Django structure view, which is a kind of an innovative way for the workflows in Django. It kind of brings into a tool window all the various things like a dashboard of the things that you're working on to let you browse through your views and other things like that and quickly jump around. And when you get a bigger Django site, I don't know about y'all, but I'm a man of a certain age and I just can't remember like a big project. And so I'm like outsourcing my brain over to the Django structure view. All right, here we go. So this is the Django live preview in action. Thank you for solving my problem with the slides being malfunction. Probably my mistake. And you see over here, Mukul, does that look familiar to you? It's Mukul sample project. And as you type on the left, you get a live rendering on the right. And it has a number of things in it. We know when things have changed because we are indexing your entire project. And we can do a much better job of reloading just the things that are or knowing when to trigger the reload on the right. And you can see just above the little URL bar, it's not really a URL, it's a route bar. And so you wind up putting in things in there that give you the route parameters. All right, cool. So that's the live preview. Blows my mind. A big change in productivity for Django template developers. Here is the Django structure tool window on the left. You can see I didn't make the screenshot because it's in dark mode. Also known as wrong mode. And we're listing your models, we're listing your apps, we're listing your views and giving you good ways, not just to navigate to things, but to make things as well. I'm hoping that this can kind of turn into a bunch of ideas from the Django community about what we can do to really impact Django workflows. And then this one also blows my mind, inline diffs, trying to innovate on the ways that we present VCS information to you in your workflows to be more productive at looking at a long list of changes. And so it feels to me like a stream. And I start at the top and I go all the way down and I can see, instead of having to navigate through file, I get this stream of things. I think it's toggleable. I think it might be the default. And I for one, I accept our inline diff overlords because I'm very happy with this feature. Okay, we will stop here on these slides and come back on screen. And Jodie?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions. So from API Logic Server, we have a question. I have PyCharm, but it's not getting the update for 2023.3.3. Probably my first thing to suggest, and feel free to jump in, everyone. I'm not sure if you're updating through Toolbox, if you wouldn't mind giving us some additional detail there. But there's potentially maybe something that we can also help you out with offline. So yeah, if you just want to jump in with, a bit more detail about
they
that.
can reach us on the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yes.
You can also, if you're on Mastodon like the rest of us, we're easy to find.
Yes. I see that there was a hey to Sarah from Hootie, and I saw you were waving.
Yes, that's why I waved.
Yes.
And Philip had some news.
Oh, yes. Philip was talking about PyCon Italia because I may be attending that.
All right.
And one other question, which was from Lubosh. I hope I said your name right. Any plans to fix the issue with running or debugging tests, PyTest runner from PyCharm in remote interpreter in Docker/Podman? Not sure if anyone knows anything about that.
All right. Let's see. Let me go back to here. I haven't. I confess, I don't use Podman. Mukul, you are more Docker than the three of us combined times 10. But I don't know if you've ever done Podman. Have you?
I did. Basically, it's like mostly the same, like
Okay.
working with Docker or Podman. But yeah, I haven't tried out the debugger with Podman or Docker intensively. But yeah, I believe like if you're facing some problem, like I believe you can go to the UTrack and give more details about the issue which you're facing up.
I can speak for us. I think that is an area of high concern for us, shall we say, remote development. So let's see, whoever mentioned that, if you are unsatisfied with the evasiveness of that response, feel free to bug me and I'll hand you over to Mukul.
Just ping pong against the people.
Indeed. Lyra points out about 2023.3.3. Jodie, I think one of the things we should talk about is we're going to be delivering things in the 2023.3 stream, right?
Yes. And I have to say the developers did not think about us poor advocates when they thought of this naming scheme. It was hard enough to say 23.3. 23.3.3 is quite a tongue twister. But yes.
2023.3.3.
You don't even bring French into this, like numbers and French. My God. One other thing I want to say is there was a lot of hate for light mode in the chat. So how about that, Paul? How about that?
Wrong, gonna wrong. That's all I got to say on that.
Oh, dear.
All right, let's go ahead and keep moving. Jodie, I guess if there are more questions, we can just bring them up, right?
Yeah, I think we've exhausted the questions for now, but please keep them coming in the chat. Like, it's a really nice chat. It's so nice when people are super engaged. So keep it coming.
Yep. Okay, we're going to get prepped for the next set of slides, which will be Sarah. We're going to be talking about Django 5, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for those who don't already know, Django 5.0 was released at the start of December, so a bit of an early Christmas present for the Django community. And there was a lot of stuff in this release. Django does a feature release every 8 months. And so this is 8 months worth of community effort. In fact, there was 204 different contributors to Django 5.0, including me. But my contribution is not the most exciting thing for sure. The most exciting thing is definitely generated fields. So this is the thing that people are talking about when they talk about why they want to upgrade to Django 5.0. So if we have a look at generated fields, which hopefully we can see shortly, but this is essentially that, the logic that's in your model, or like might be on model methods before, this is now has an opportunity to move this as an actual field on your database schema. So, for example, and there's an article I want to share that's was written by Paolo Melchiorre that essentially gives you all these different examples of how you could be using a generated field. And one example is let's say you have something that has a price and a quantity, and you wanted to have total price somewhere, then what you could do is you could now use a generated field that is like multiplying price by quantity. And then because it's now a field on your database table, you can filter by it, you can index it, and you've got all these extra super cool benefits. And yeah, that's kind of why people really like it. If you're a SQL Alchemy user, these are, I think they're called computed columns or something like that. So that's probably the synergy there. But yeah, that was probably the main feature of Django 5.0. But it isn't my favorite story about Django 5.0. Actually, my favorite story is about DB default, which is another huge feature that got delivered. And the reason it's my favorite story is Lily Foote. Yeah, exactly. Lily Foote, who you can see here. She'd been working on DB default on and off for the past 10 years. Django's been around for quite a while. And before, if you set your default value in a field, that actually isn't reflected on the database column that's associated with that field. And Django would send the value for that in the SQL every single time you're trying to insert data into the table. But now you can actually use DB default, and then that default value is available on the database table. And considering we have lots of friends in data science and all these other things, it's really useful to give them some information about, the tables that you're designing. And if they have a status that the default should be unreviewed or something like that, then now they can see that. And if people were writing any raw SQL, then that default value will actually be there, rather than it only works when you're using it via the Django ORM. So incredibly cool. I'm so happy for Lily that she got this in. And yeah, it's definitely my favorite story of Django 5.0. But, Django is more than a framework. Django is a community, and there's quite a lot of stuff going on right now. For those who don't know, we recently had DSF board elections, and we've got 2 new DSF board members who are Sarah Abdamane and Thibaut Colas. And they're super cool. They both really care about accessibility and the Django community as a whole. And so it's quite exciting seeing what they want to do with the future of Django. Fortunately, I was very, very lucky that they came to the Django Cologne meetup just recently, and they were doing this really cool discussion about what we should do with Django going forward. So yeah, I have a lot of love for these 2 people. One of the things that Sarah does with me, we're the 2 Sarahs of Django, if anyone ever mentions that Django has 2 Sarahs. Along with also Dawn Wages and with Rachel Calhoun, we actually organized Django Not Space, which is a mentorship program for Django. And that's going on right now, actually. We've got 18 different community members who were supporting making their first contributions to Django and like other packages in the Django ecosystem. And that's going really well. And it's great to see people from across the world really feel the Django community love for the first time. And so, yeah, that's pretty awesome. But, back on the future of Django, Thibaut is especially excited about making a bit of an informal roadmap for what Django could do next. And so there's a lot of discussions going on right now going, what is missing in Django? What could we take from Laravel? What could we, what should we be inspired about from other frameworks? And, what is missing? And so these are discussions that if you're passionate about Django, I really encourage you to get involved with. And yeah, we'll see what happens there. But you already got a teaser just earlier. I'm not sure if you noticed. The major news is that Mariusz Feliciak announced his retirement as a Django Fellow. He's going to step down at the end of March, and so the Django Software Foundation is on the hunt for a new fellow. I cannot put it in words how much I feel about Mariusz stepping down. He was really, he's the person who invited me in the Django contributing community. He really encouraged me to continue with it, and I wouldn't be here without him. He also is the most prolific person I have ever known. I think he gets up at 5 a.m. and does like a half marathon every morning, and then does a bunch of tickets, reviews maybe 15 PRs, and yeah, he's incredible. So there's big shoes to fill, but the Django community is really great, and this is an amazing opportunity for someone to make a difference and help push all of these exciting ideas that we have right now forward. So I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of my Django update. So I'm happy to see the questions we've got and talk about Django. So
I really love hearing you talk about Django. Like it's really, I think, moving the community, and because it's not a community I belong to at all. It's been so nice learning about them from you. We've had a bunch of different questions. We've had a few about the AI assistant. Paul put a note in the chat. I'm actually going to be talking about AI assistant in a bit. So if you can hold on for just a couple more segments, we might want to deal with all that at once. Jay has given you some big hearts on the new DSF members. Kim also really liked the update, so it's pretty cool. So we had a Django specific question. Let me see if I can just find that. Yeah, it was from Jay as well. I should read the docs on this, but is DB default working for specific DBs only? And if so, which ones?
All of them.
Hey!
Well done, Lily. Even Oracle. Yes. So crazy.
That's probably why it took her 10 years.
I think
so. We had a non-Django question as well from Makonnen. Any plans to integrate MyPy officially into PyCharm with live checks on large code bases and error highlighting based on your personal configuration, for example? I'm a data scientist. I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to throw it. I told you, we write trash code and we like it. But yes, any kind of ideas from you, Paul?
Sure. I am a consumer of MyPy on my projects. PyCharm over the last year of release cycles has started to embrace external tools a little bit better. For example, direct black integration. MyPy is on the list. MyPy is pretty big. MyPy moves pretty fast. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. It will probably never be something where it replaces our type hinting. For example, in WebStorm, when you say, give me prettier, most people say, give me prettier and turn off your formatting. Probably won't be that heavy, but it will make it more convenient to run MyPy.
Mm-hmm. We had a question from Matthias. Is running a half marathon every morning a hard requirement for the DSF fellow role?
I hope not.
I hope not. Yes. I think that's going to be a small overlap of the Venn diagrams.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple more questions. Makonnen said, that's fair. So thanks for the feedback on that. Matt has asked, why was Django 5 not LTS?
This is a great question. All right. So there's a really interesting conversation as to whether the Django versioning system is perhaps like a little misleading. like if you're in the, a lot of people in Django are used to it. So you're right, Django 5.0 is not the LTS version. Only the 0.2 versions are the LTS versions. So we just finished 4.2. That's the LTS. Now we're on 5.0. And the release is not done because of the features. It's done based off time. So we have this feature release every 8 months, which is a little bit confusing. So it's not like Django issues a release because of, we want to get those features out there. It is a scheduled release. It's quite similar to maybe Ubuntu, and Ubuntu uses Calver, so calendar versioning, which like helps communicate that it was about time and not about like the feature set. Whereas Django's gone for somewhere in between, where it's a little bit like Semver, a little bit like semantic versioning, but it's also to do with time. But it's kind of because it's trying to communicate like, what the LTS will be. And I don't know if Django can change this because the community is so used to that 0.2 is the LTS. It's quite difficult to like change how we communicate this, but it definitely causes a lot of confusion with a lot of people. So I think it's an open point. But yes, basically, with your question, as soon as the feature is in, it's going to be supported until the end of time. So the next LTS will be 5.2 that will have DB default and generated fields.
I'll pop this up. Jay gives you a thumbs up on that.
I think it could help. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. I was going to say Jay is rocking this chat.
Yeah, as he always does. We'll do one more and then go on to Python stuff.
I think so. So, Hadi, unfortunately, I'd missed your question and I jumped straight to Matt's. So, will we see in the future Django has its own default API framework? I mean, building API Django REST framework is cool, but if Django was the default one, I think that would be amazing.
So, Hadi, you're not the only person who is asking for this. This is it's coming up in a lot of people's wish lists. So right now, quite a few people, because Thibaut is encouraging people to make a Django wish list, essentially, to help feed this roadmap. Having like some API support in Django core is definitely on many people's wish lists. So I can't promise anything, but it's quite likely that this might get prioritized as something that Django wants to do.
All right, we will go ahead. Joe, is that all right if we go ahead and transition?
Yeah. And if we miss any questions, we'll see how we go for time at the end. But yeah, let's give Mukul some space to breathe.
Sure. And Philip, we'll get back to your point, and Matthias, we'll get back to your point about the new type syntax as well. So let's go ahead and get my slides up. I'm going to talk about faster Python. It's kind of under the banner of what's new in Python 3.12, but I'm going to kind of tell a story that goes backwards a little bit to 3.11 and then forwards to 3.13 and fast and beyond. I confessed I got out of order because I got so excited. This was supposed to be first. So the whole thing in the beginning with the slides is on me, but don't yell at me because that's elderly abuse.
Paul,
I'll file you with HR. Okay, so there was some groundwork that went into the faster, and I'll say C Python to focus on the main Python implementation. There was some groundwork that started in 3.11, and you see at the bottom of this kind of measurable results from the 3.11 work, but it was laying the groundwork for some other things. Apologize for the contrast ratio mix up here, but there's an arrow on here pointing to specialized adaptive interpreter. There was some work done in the before 3.12 to give Python the places to then go and experiment with the interpreter without really breaking the universe or something like that. So this article at Linux Weekly News is a deep dive part 1 on the start of this. Then in 3.12, you start to see all these optimizations that lead to 3.12 being notably faster. So this is lower numbers are better. And you'll see that Python 2.7 is 52.4 thingies on this. And Python 3.7 was worse. But then 3.8 got faster than Python 2.7. That was the first Python 3 that was faster than Python 2. And then on and on and on. And you'll kind of get an idea. This is somebody did a benchmark in the community. You'll get an idea over time with some of these changes that are coming from the faster CPython team at Microsoft under Guido. I would name all of them, but I'll leave somebody out and I'll feel terrible about it, so I won't. Now, there's a second big thing about how can Python be a lot faster. Python only, I'm going to elide a bunch of stuff. Python can only run on one core-ish, but for the purposes of it, only on one core. And we know that we are in a multi-core world. One of the best ways, simplest ways, is to kind of copy Mukul. This is where you'll do the.
I did that in the beginning. I did that in the beginning.
From the Golang concurrency model with Python is to have separate isolated interpreters that can sub-interpreters that can run on different cores. Well, Eric Snow picked up the fight on this 100 years ago and had to push through a lot of pushback, but he also had to do the janitorial work of cleanup on aisle 7 all over the Python code base where there was mutable global state and all these other things. And so finally it started to land. Clever eyes will note, you'll think that I got these out of order because of the numbers, but look at the Python version. The higher number one landed first for the PEPs. The second one, the evidence of this is in 3.12. If you want to use it, you import like dunder XXX sub interpreters because they want to work out. The plumbing is there in 3.12. A convenient API will arrive in 3.13. Now, if you want to read a fascinating and awesome treatment of this, this is a link to a great article by our friend and mortal enemy, head of Python advocacy at Microsoft, lovely human being, Anthony Shaw, has been doing some really impressive work on this, including patches to CPython to let tuples or tuples, depending on whether you're Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere, let tuples be shared data with your sub-interpreters. Hey, look, it's Anthony again. So another big thing, in addition to sub-interpreters, landed like December. And this is a just-in-time compiler, JIT. This has been a field of research in the world of Python. I think Anthony wrote his own JIT based on Iron Python or the CLR or something like that. And this is an article talking about that. The pull request barely fit in Safari's memory buffer. It was so big. But this is an exciting time in the world of Python for performance, to include the big one. When is Python going to get rid of the GIL? We've been hearing this for 2 decades. The GIL or the GIL, but it's the GIL. Global interpreter lock prevents Python from doing 2 things at once, basically. And there's a long effort on this underway from Sam Gross at Meta. And it generated a lot of discussion. And it actually is starting to happen and get accepted. But curb your enthusiasm. Sub-interpreters and free threading no-GIL are going to expose, and this is where Jay, I think a number of people in the chat are about to either vote me up or vote me down or vote me off the island. is going to expose that there's a lot of Python code out there that kind of sucks. And the moment you start doing these concurrency things, the universe explodes. The steering council is trying to go slow on this because they don't want to break the universe. Yes, Pavel, in a second, I will paste links to those articles. So for all of us in the world of Python, exciting times ahead. Please be a voice of reason and caution when you're out there advocating for these things in Reddit, because we have a lot of people who started programming yesterday, and we don't want them to have a negative experience. Jodie, I'll stop there and we'll go back to all of us.
Yeah, we got quite a lot of heckling, really, as to be expected from your section. Matt said he wrote some of that bad code. Jay said, enemy, Paul, I thought we were just friends.
Sat beside you at PyCon dinner 2 or 3 years ago, where we broke bread.
Broke bread and broke heads, I guess.
Yes.
And Jay's also said that he's interviewed Eric on this a couple of times and he's very excited about this work. Matt is very excited about the Gillless Python. I think all of us are. And yeah, I don't think we had any questions. I think, oh my God, Jan has joined to echo you. So it's a pile-on, really.
Yeah,
but
he's seen my code. He knows.
You
But I will
for
say
it.
Jay gets the award for the worst comment that will happen in this entire live stream.
Rewriting Rust. Yeah, I'm married to a
All your
Rust
data
developer.
science people are itching to write some Rust code, aren't they?
Well, I have a section about a Rust library, so of course.
Perfect timing.
Look, I have to have all the sexy stuff. AI, Rust, I hog it all for myself.
And of course, we're closing with that, right?
Yes.
You got to know where the talent is. Before we get there, let's see. I think we covered basically most of the stuff that came up in comments, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're good to move on.
All right, cool. So we're going to bring up Mukul, who has some really cool things to show, and I'm going to give reaction faces because I've seen this already. Let's go ahead and bring up Mukul's video. And Mukul, before we play it, do you want to give a little bit of prep on what people are going to see?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, it's all about Python 3.12, which was released like in October, almost like 4 months. And I consider it still not old before 3.13 comes this year. And I'm pretty excited to highlight some useful enhancement that will definitely help you in your Python journey.
All right, let's get the video up.
Strings give you an easy and short way to format strings, but there were some drawbacks until Python 3.12. In earlier Python versions, not properly separating single and double quotes would cause a syntax error, like what's happening on line number 8. So before this, you could not sneak in a backslash in f-string expressions, but now you totally can. Use backslashes in f-string just like you do in any other expression. Easy peasy. Here is a little bonus for you. Now you can throw in comments with your expressions. Pretty neat. Guess what? You can now use nested f-strings. But keep in mind, using too many levels of nesting might make your code a bit tricky to read and understand. Share your thoughts in the comments, curious to know what you think. Python 3.12 has gotten a bit smarter. Now it doesn't just throw errors at you, it also gives handy suggestions to make debugging faster. As per the official documentation, this applies to name error, import error, and syntax error exceptions. Now let's talk about the PEP 698 override decorator. What this handy tool does is make it crystal clear when one method is intentionally overriding another. For instance, in our example, our code clearly indicates that the doc subclass is overriding the speak method. It's all good in a simple setup like this. However, imagine a scenario with a bunch of methods and attributes in one class. It would be much cleaner for debugging if we could clearly separate the new methods from the overridden ones. Check out line number 10. If you try messing with the method there, it's gonna give you a clue that something is off or missing. If you are dealing with keyword arguments, we call them quarks. Now you can use this unpack thing to specify the type. Before it was a bit trickier with strings and all, but now thanks to unpack, it's much easier to define the type. The primary enhancement involves PEP 695, introducing a new syntax for type parameter. This will significantly streamline our approach to working with generics. In the past, we utilized generics and typevar, but now the process has been greatly simplified. When it comes to functions, the type alias has also undergone a change. With the new syntax, you will need to prefix it with type. Let me quickly show you an example of how it used to work before and how it works now in Python 3.12. As you can see in lines 10 and 11, it shows that the function returns a tuple of integers and a tuple of strings, making it very clear about what the function is going to return. Many of them used any previously to handle this kind of scenarios. However, you lose information about what the function is going to return exactly, as the type can be anything. This is how using generics can make life easier. Let's now see what the difference is when we switch to Python 3.12. So you can see it has gotten way more simplified and we don't need to use typevar anymore. Let's talk about the new PEP 669 low impact monitoring. If you have ever faced slowdowns using the Python debugger, PEP 669 is here to rescue you. The old way with sys.settrace wasn't very efficient for years, but this new feature makes debugging in Python much smoother. The low impact monitoring API replaces a single trace function with separate callbacks for various event types. Additionally, it introduces tool identifiers to enable multiple tools to receive runtime events independently. Hey, if you're curious about PEP 669, check out Andre's blog post. He breaks down how it can slash your debugging time by 95%. Also, PyCharm 2023.3 now supports the new low impact monitoring API right out of the box for projects using Python 3.12 interpreters. Python is on a rapid evolution, getting even more elegant. Version 3.12 brought in major upgrades. I didn't cover all the cool features like sub-interpreters, Linux per profiler, immutable objects, and more, but they are definitely worth checking out. Dive into the official docs or swing by the PyCharm blog for more.
Woo!
That was quick.
All the engineering work that went into that, and you covered it in 7 minutes.
You have such a nice voice for videos as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good pacing. One thing I wanted to point out, and then we can open it up to other comments. The point about low impact monitoring, Mukul is right. Definitely read that blog post because Andre really makes the case for this. It's most useful for the cases that were radically slow pre 3.12, and we couldn't enable by default the checkbox in preferences. In particular, there's a checkbox that says drop into the debugger whenever there's an exception. But the way Python puts this instrumentation meant you paid the price on every line of code. With 3.12 and low impact, you don't pay the price. We can give a developer experience now, which is the debugger appears when you need it. And that's pretty cool, including in testing. So we got a lot of ideas that we want to do. In this low impact monitoring PEP isn't just about debugging. I believe coverage.py now has support for low impact. So you can do coverage without a speed penalty. Lots of these things can just be on by default. You don't have to go run them in a separate mode. Mukul, did I get that right? Yes.
Yes.
And unlocked.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on time. One comment from Matthias is that as a joke, we should limit F string nesting to 12 levels deep, just like C only allows 12 levels of indirection with pointers. Always up for trolling C people, even though they're the backbone of Python. Anyway, and Matt has commented, I think you already replied in chat, Paul, but I just want to sort of bring it up. I really dislike F strings, string.format for the win. F strings are like inline CSS in HTML. They get messy and are difficult to read. Anything more than inserting a variable should not be an F string. I have to say I am an abuser of F strings, but again, trash code. Don't know if you should learn anything from me.
When your notebook is going to be deleted tomorrow, you don't care that much about formatting, right?
Look, when the only person who's ever going to read that document is you, you've only got yourself to blame. So you can choose, pick your poison, really.
Yeah. Okay, Jodie, is there anything else we want to talk about today?
Oh, yeah. So
Right.
like I told you, I'm coming up with some sexy Rust-based libraries and, well, just one really, and also AI Assistant.
All right.
So let's start with the Rust library. And I am sure from the context, you have all guessed this is Polars. For those of you who don't know about Polars, basically this was a library. I think Richie Vink started this project in 2022, I want to say. Sorry, I've got that wrong, Richie. But basically, it's a high-performance data frame library, and it fills a gap in a Python ecosystem, or the Python data frame ecosystem, in between pandas and distributed data frame libraries like PySpark or Dask or Ray. So basically, it's designed to work like pandas does, running on a single machine, but it's something like 5 to 10 times faster, and it uses less than half the RAM. So it's really perfect for those use cases where you have a data frame that isn't going to fit into memory. You're not going to be able to do operations on it in pandas, but you really, it's a bit too small to bother setting up like a Spark session, which is a real pain in the butt. So basically, Polars is super, super good at doing data transformations. And it's very easy to use. The API is quite similar to PySpark, so it's quite quick to pick up. One of my favorite features, therefore, to come out in PyCharm last year, and you would know this if you joined us for the 2023.2 live stream, was this support for working with Polars data frames. So basically, the team ported all of this super nice functionality that they'd built in for working with pandas data frames. Things like, being able to have infinite scroll on columns and rows, being able to paginate through different sets of rows, being able to do sort of sorting through the UI, and also my favorite feature, which is being able to export these data frames in a huge range of formats. So basically, really like even wild formats like SQL select statements, Markdown, having the ability to just basically move from your data processing to other sort of things that you want to do with your data. So all that was applied to Polars data frames. Don't want to dwell on that because I've already covered it. What I want to talk about is one of my favorite features from 2023.3, the release that came out in December, which is the ability to do no-code visualizations straight from Polars data frames. So the reason this is so important is Polars is really good at doing data transformations, ETLs. But because it's based on Arrow, it's not actually compatible with most of the visualization packages like Matplotlib or Seaborn. So it's meant that, it's sort of been this separate process. You do ETLs in Polars, and then maybe need to move over to pandas to do your visualizations. But being able to do them straight from the data frame means that you can kind of integrate them together and actually do exploratory data analysis on Polars data frames much more seamlessly. So I'm going to give you a quick demo. See, I've got this super, super simple notebook here. I'm working with my favorite airlines data set. If you've seen any of my demos before, I'm always using it. It's basically just information about delays, number of flights leaving from major US airports. So we go ahead and we load in Polars, and we load in our data into a Polars data frame. And then when we go to have a look at that data frame, you can see we now have this new button here, the chart view. So if I click on that, it's going to start loading all of that in as a data frame, which is going to take a little while because it needs to read the whole thing in. But once it's finished doing that, you can see that we get these beautiful interactive visualizations. I know, they're so nice. And they're quite sophisticated actually. Like the level of granularity you can go to is not bad for no code. It's actually very good. We go to show series settings. You can see these are the two variables I have at the moment. You have the X and the Y, and you can also group, but let's just go ahead and show you how to build a chart from scratch. Let's say I pick this time label column, I need to group and sort it so it knows to basically use it as a categorical variable in order. And then I'll just pick one of my numeric columns, maybe flights cancelled, and you can see what a beautiful little data frame. It's basically like a plotly plot without having to do any code. And you can actually do this with pandas as well. So I go ahead and load that into a pandas data frame. You can see we can do the exact same thing. So not only is it really great because it allows you to use polars for EDAs, but it also means that there's a lot less code that you need to write, which can be cumbersome with the sort of packages that we work with for coding. There's a lot of very specific syntax that you need to learn, and sometimes that is a bit of a learning curve, especially for beginners. So you can see the same thing in pandas. So that's everything I wanted to talk about with polars. If you're interested in learning more about polars, I wrote a pretty comprehensive blog post about it in the middle of last year. We also interviewed Richie. So we have a video from him on our channel, just a quick overview of the library, but it's fascinating and I think well worth taking the time to learn because it really does give you a lot of performance gains. And this new feature in PyCharm really helps with integrating it into your usual workflows. So we're very short on time, but I did want to leave a bit of time to cover AI Assistant, which of course was one of our biggest announcements from last year from JetBrains generally, not just in PyCharm. So basically, we can consider this, I guess, a data science related announcement, although, it's really just a suite of features which is designed to do what we always do, which is improve developer productivity. And it's built into all of our IDEs. And basically, instead of, the usual sort of heuristic-based methods, this one is based on large language models. And I think the team has done a great job of integrating the kind of LLMs into your workflow. It doesn't feel gimmicky to me. It feels like it's really designed to help you understand your code better, or maybe to help assist, give you templates for more tedious tasks. So I'm actually going to chuck over to my colleagues. So what are some of your favorite features from AI Assistant? I'm going to ask you first, Paul.
We talked before about 2023.3.
Nice work, mate. Yes.
And something that is starting to roll out, I believe it might already be there for Java and Kotlin. I believe it's rolling out for us, is generate unit tests. And I know data scientists love writing tests. But that notwithstanding, I love writing tests as well. And some of the features that we've gotten kind of deeply embedded, we're bringing these things to the editor rather than making you leave the editor and go to those things. And kind of AI appears in the context that you were sitting in. So I'm really eager to be sitting in a test and have it write a better test than what I would have written.
Yeah, I totally agree with that in principle. As you said, don't really know much about tests. So Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So for me, I really like kind of playing around with prompts. I'm still trying to figure out and tweak like how I should, write a really good prompt. And the best thing about that is, sometimes you feel like you've made some progress there and you want to kind of save that down so that you can use that going forward. And I love that you can write your own custom prompts and have that in your IDE as like a shortcut that you can then reuse this and tweak it as much as you like. And so, for example, in Django Core, there's quite an extensive contributing guide, and I can put some of those stuff in there, and then it can really like help me speed that up because
I didn't think of that.
That's already there.
Yeah, it's almost like you're doing like the modern way of overcoming a lot of the fact that you have large language models with dated like knowledge bases is adding this sort of information to the prompt. So yeah, the fact that you have thought of doing that intuitively is so nice. And Mukul, what about you?
Yeah, I really appreciate using the AI assistant along with like full line completion for generating task suits. So they're quite good for improving my productivity. But to be honest, like sometimes like I used to get like ambiguous answers. So it's like what should I say, that you should not completely rely on this kind of AI tools. Like, you still need to do some verifications. I think there is a term called hallucination. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep,
So-
exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I would only say that it's good to use these tools, but definitely don't trust them 100%.
Yep. And like, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but this is why we called it AI assistant. The idea is this is a companion. Do not use it to replace. This is also why I said it will not automate tasks for you. It will just help template.
True.
So yeah, if you have not seen the AI assistant yet, you can visit the homepage at jetbrains.com/AI and give it a try and let us know what you think. And I think we did have some questions come in, right? Oh, quite a
you wanna
lot.
take that?
Nice.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll start with a not question. I'll just start with a funny comment. I am constantly at war with future me, or future me is at war with current me. And so I found this one kind of funny. Let's go back to one that was near the start, and let's just give a quick, easy answer for this. Community edition.
Yeah, we've gotten this question many times. It's something we're discussing internally. We had to be slightly cautious about who we could release the AI assistant for when we started, because having enough servers to actually run these models, even with OpenAI, was difficult for them to provide us with enough capacity. So we're just sort of seeing how things go at the moment, but we're discussing it internally. And unfortunately, I can't give you a yes or no right now, but watch this space.
Indeed. So in a kind of a similar vein, Copilot has a plugin for our IDEs. We're doing something similar. What would you say, Jodie, is like, if you want this, do that, but if you want that, do this?
Yeah, look, the consensus that I've heard from a lot of people using them is, if you're working with JetBrains IDEs, our AI assistant seems to be the best experience in our IDEs. If you're working with Copilot and VS Code, that seems to be the best experience. It's, of course, super subjective. Tooling is subjective. I would sort of say, I don't have an easy answer for you about... Like, obviously, you're going to have to pick one or the other if you don't want to pay for both, but just see which one you like better. And, it's really up to your personal taste.
I think one thing you're pointing out is a lot of these tools are doing, it's like every dang piece of software is sprinkling AI on the label now. But different tools are going to have different viewpoints, and we have a viewpoint, and our viewpoint is assist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see. Matt has this with a follow-on of, are they exportable?
I am so glad you asked this question, because I forgot to mention this. Yes, it does work with the scientific view. So the same thing will work if you have data frame objects that you've created as part of running against a Jupyter console. So yep, that works perfectly. And yes, all of the graphs are exportable as PNG. I do not believe the underlying code is exportable. Because, it makes sense. I don't actually quite know how they're doing it. Like, maybe they're doing it in Plotly for polars, but the graph itself is exportable as a PNG.
All right. Over to Sarah.
Yeah. Okay. So
quick take on this.
So there isn't anything specific for Django Ninja 1.0. It's definitely like something there's a lot of excitement about. I think it's, in my opinion, Django Ninja to me is like Django's response to Fast API. But it's in the conversation about like what should we do for API support for Django going forward. So Django Ninja is definitely something that we're looking at, and we'll see what we'll do there.
All right, and then kind of a last one, but I see a couple more just came in. Sarah kind of touched on this with prompts and things. Jodie, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah. So in terms of the prompts, you can kind of put anything you want. Just a very quick kind of comment. Large language models are generalist natural language models. They're designed to do a huge range of tasks, and they need sort of a lot of specificity in the instructions. You're kind of limited by, obviously, the amount of stuff that can go into what's called the context window. There's a length, but in theory, you can put whatever you want. And Sarah, by the sounds of it, you're building fairly comprehensive prompts. You can put examples of things you want, like, here's an example of the sort of output I want. So you can really sort of play around with this. So definitely, like, try and get as specific as you want with your prompts, and you'll get an error if it's too long, but there's quite a lot that you can actually cram in there. And then you can obviously save all of those.
Yeah, exactly. So you can right click and you've got the ones that JetBrains provides you, and then you've got the option to add your own. And then you can go there and you can also choose whether it's going to be just like whether you then go and use that into the chat, or if you just want it to, that you don't need to add anything else and you just want it to, go for it. So really play around with it. It's quite fun. And it's a way to save stuff so you can thank your future self.
And share ideas with us, because we're just starting on this journey. We've got so many cool ideas about how we can assist. It's fun to think about. Okay, let's go ahead and switch into wrapping up. We have a couple more questions and comments we could go over, but they're about AI, and that means we'll be here all day because this is so fascinating. So, Jodie, if it's okay with you, we'll wrap up your segment and start closing out.
Yeah, and I actually really wanted to thank PoetryTube in particular for all of the questions. Sorry, we're not going to get time to answer them, but we'll probably do another of these. So feel free to join in and we can chat about this again.
Yep. Very good. Okay, let's go ahead and do a quick roundtable as kind of what are the takeaways that we would like people to get from this. Mukul, we'll start with you. What's your takeaway for the audience today?
I would say it's important to stay updated on the latest happening in the Python world. And even Paul has already covered all those things, like upcoming improvements, continuation of sub-interpreters, the just-in-time compiler, and also getting rid of GIL. And there are a lot of enhancement and deprecations going ahead. So just stay tuned in the exciting progress in Python.
Mukul, 3.13 is already into several alphas, right?
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. A lot happening in Python. Get involved. I guess October would be the release date. Maybe I should look that up before the live stream. Okay. We'll just say October with a confident voice and move on to Sarah. What's your takeaway?
I mean, I love Jodie's demo so much. So it's been on my wish list to really play around with some pandas and some polars and stuff like this, so that I can feel a little bit more like a competent Python developer, or more well-rounded, because I'm very, very much in web. So that looked like something that even I can manage. And so hopefully I should just bite the bullet and play around. So that's on me.
Well, I think I've managed to lure you over to the data science side, which is a win for me.
No. Web frameworks, still a thing. Still a thing.
I'll never leave Django. No.
There you go. All right, Jodie, Sarah's right. Your stuff was great. Note to self, never appear in a live stream with Jodie Burchell, because her stuff is better than your stuff and you'll look really incompetent and insufficient. What's your big takeaway?
Well, I think first takeaway is I told you I was going to take all the sexy stuff. But on a more serious note, you've seen it. Coding assistance is here and it's here to stay. We've just released our own. I want to state again, it's not going to replace developers, and you should use these tools judiciously as a tool to assist you, as yet another productivity tool. On that note, there is still a big place in the data science ecosystem for the fundamentals, things like good quality data processing, understanding the models that you're using. This is not going to be automated away anytime soon, and PyCharm is still going to be supporting all of this core data science work. We have some very sexy stuff coming up in the next months. Can't say anything about it yet, but watch this space. And yeah, I'm really excited about the sort of things we've got coming out.
All right, I'll give my quick takeaways before we get the slides back up and wrap up. I'll echo both Mukul and Jodie. I'll echo Mukul on things coming in Python. It's a weird, exciting time in the world of Python. We've got these tensions between people doing Python at Instagram scale, trying to get Django to run for Instagram, versus the 101% of Python developers who learned to program yesterday. And every time we do one of these surveys, oh my God, I feel old. And so those two things are tough to balance. And I feel like the steering council is doing a good job at that. But some serious machinery appears to be coming soon. PyCharm is doing some good things. This echoes what Jodie said. We know what's coming. And we actually saw something yesterday. And so some of this stuff is really cool. PyCharm is getting kind of ambitious in 2024. That's neat to see. And us advocates are getting ambitious as well. We've got some cool plans that involve all of you. So we want to tell your story because y'all are all smarter than me. So we look for us to be reaching out to you after we close out this webinar. So let's bring up the slides to get out of here. If you'd like more information on PyCharm, please go to where we live. We live in lots of places. We live on the web. We have a blog. We have a Twitter. And we have a YouTube presence. If you haven't bookmarked or whatever it is you do to keep up with, do people still bookmark things or is it all just YouTube shorts? Probably that. Go find where we hang out and subscribe to us so we can reach you better. You'll find news about upcoming events and releases. Newsflash, we're getting into release time and it's going to be exciting. And we'll put out information about events such as this. So we'd love to get your feedback on this webinar. Did I say webinar again?
Sorry, Grandpa.
Oh, no kidding. It'll be okay, Grandpa. Here's your stuff. So please send in the feedback form. If you registered, you'll get the feedback form. Fill it out because we read it and we learn about what you'd like to talk to and how we can adjust the silliness quotient of our live streams. So with that in mind, a big wave from all of us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and hope you have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.